Yo, what is up? I'm Zach. Welcome back to my channel of RWBY Mythology. Today I bring you guys Chapter 7 of RWBY Syndicate. If you have not read the previous chapter, go check that out. This one not making sense to you. And a little bit disclaimer and warning for this chapter. This chapter will contain strong language and sex and nudity. So basically, another 18 plus. So if you're not under age 18, leave now because this is something that y'all younger audience should not be watching. So yeah, just want to clear that away. And sorry for the delay. I usually do this in the morning, but personal thing just got out of the way. So yeah, I'm not gonna waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and dive right into it.
A cat and chameleon Faunus wrestle under the covers in a dimly lit room of stone and violence. To say sweet nothings were exchanged here would be the same as lying in these walls. This was simply a small debt that was owed for a job well done. But that agreed upon one night in bed turned into multiple over time. It wasn't intentional per se, but who would deny a piece of ass like Elia? The White Fang's certified spy, depending on how you wanted to talk about her. The White Fang's fourth talent. Ah yes, that was the real line of words that made the other henchmen of the Fang stand upright and salute her as she walked by. Then Elia would laugh until she couldn't stand up straight at the absurdity of it all. That was her life now after being reined in by Gira. It was a small sacrifice for her really. She used to be able to roam around Remnant City to her heart's leisure. Picking up small bits of information. Secrets that wouldn't be uttered by the mouths that carried them even in a drunken state. At least now she was getting what she wanted for all her efforts, and the next she'd sliced open for the Fang's benefit. A morsel of that sweet belladonna nectar. Two small black cat ears poke out from under the sheets and a spotted girl rises up next to her with the covers at their breasts. They both look up at the ceiling with sweat pouring from their naked bodies. Yet another good night. Blake and Elia exchange a glance at each other only for Elia to flick her tongue between two fingers. Blake rolls her eyes with a blush and sighs as she looks at the clock on the right wall. It was 2:45 a.m. They'd been at this for the last couple hours or so. Heavy on the foreplay too. Elia was the only person that could force a small cute meow out of her when she was coming. It was embarrassing too. You gonna sit there and hurt my feelings, or are you going to cuddle with me? Elia says, flicking a small white cylinder into her mouth. She lights it with a small cigarette lighter she'd stolen from a small mom and pop store back when she was younger. Her first steal. She kept it as a bitter memento to better times. Blake ignores her and looks at her body under the covers. She was littered with passion marks. She'd earned all of them too. What is with you and cuddling after sex? Blake groans as she rose from the sheets. The cold stone floor of the base did nothing to soothe her aching everything. Animal, God forbid I actually like being with you, Blake. Geez. Elia says, relaxing in the bed with her arms behind her head. Blake was still trying to be the hard ass even after all this. This was like the 8th night they'd slept together. Blake had been very picky about who saw her with Elia like this. The last thing she needed was people challenging her authority because she was sleeping with subordinates. You know that's not the point, Elia. Blake says as she shimmies into her purple panties and combat-grade bra. It had padding and knife holsters in the back. Elia gazes at the sight of Blake trying to hide their fun night together with pointless bravado. The view was nice enough to Elia. Scared Daddy Dearest is going to say something. Elia says, teasing Blake, flicking her longer tongue at her. Don't you dare mock me. This has nothing to do with my father. Blake bellows. Elia just chuckles to herself and taps some ash off to the side. This is why I said you need to get laid. You're way too uptight about everything right now. Blake was listening as she got dressed, one hissing sore after the other on her body. I really tried to take the stick out your ass, but I see I need more time with you. This is for your own good, Blake. Elia continued. What's good for me is that the White Fang and Faunus overall that can thrive in this fucking hellhole we call home. That's what my mother would have wanted. Blake says, sliding the rest of her uniform onto her form. She was always careful to not get anything unsightly on her fatigues. It was hard enough washing blood out of it. What your mother would have wanted is at bare minimum is for you to find someone to come back to. But you're denying yourself that. For what I don't know. Elia says, laying on the bed with her feet kicked into the air behind her. They'd been debating their lives after the shitty situation they were in for the last month now. Elia wanted Blake to be with her and at least pretend to be happy. Blake was too devoted to the cause her father had thrust upon her shoulders. My mother is in a fucking coma. How would you know what she wants? Blake says, now sliding back into her role as Talon 1. Elia rolls her eyes and flips to her back with her breasts pointed at the ceiling. A small jiggle gets an eye roll from Blake and a very slim smirk forms on her lips. Because Blake, I actually talked to her a bit when she was here. You know, getting career advice and all that jazz, Elia says, smiling upside down at her bedmate. Oh joy. You were hitting on my mom too, were you? Blake says, sliding her sword onto her left hip. Now that would be a challenge, but nah. I was trying to get to know you better. When I first saw you on that stage with your father and mother during the first Fang uprising in Mistral. Elia shakes her head at the memory. I'd take you to dinner that night. You were so beautiful, so inspiring. You definitely gave me my first wet dream. I was like 17 at the time. So roughly 7 years ago then. Great. Blake says, flipping her hair back from her uniform jacket. Blake gestures to Elia to come closer as she sits on the edge of the bed. Elia smiles at the tender offer and begins to braid Blake's hair. You know, we could have more moments like this. Normal time together, Elia says as she begins her hand movements. Blake sits there staring at the wall blankly. Yeah, perhaps in another life she could have found happiness. But not in Remnant City though. The city had a way of swallowing loved ones up and spitting their intestines out down by the outtake reservoir that led to waters unknown. Hearing my blade tear through my enemies is my version of normal, Elia. Yours is popping someone in the head after stealing all their dirtiest tidbits. How can we be normal about that? Blake counters with a soft growl. Oh Blake, you sound like a cartoon villain. Lighten up, okay. Elia retorted with her smoke hanging tightly in her lips. Blake whirls around quickly at her with intense amber eyes. I can't. You know that. Then why even bother sleeping with me then, Blake? You know what I want. I want you. I don't give a damn about these damn colors and faction beefs. Elia sends right back at Blake. Her mood had soured greatly and now her skin had begun shifting into a soft orange and red color. You watch your mouth talking to me like that. Blake says, attempting to grab her throat, but Elia was ever the elusive one and winds up pinning Blake to the bed with her arm behind her back. Listen here. I love you, okay. I really do, but please don't make me have to kill you. Elia says in a low dark voice against Blake's ear. Get off me. You weren't saying that the other day. Elia chimes playfully as she lets Blake go. Blake takes a second to get herself together before pushing up into a sitting position. Elia takes the chance to tackle Blake into the bed and mount her hips. Blake groans but gives up ultimately. Okay, before you go all war general on me, please hear me out, Blake. Elia says, bringing Blake's hands to her breasts like she was making a pledge to her body. I know not having your mom here has been a pain in the ass. I get it, okay. My mom got executed way back by the Schnees for trying to steal money from them to feed me. I get Sienna was squeezed out like a bad beef roll. I get it. But please, don't push me away because you're hurting. Blake just glares up at her. Elia was making her soft. She knew that, hated that, but couldn't deny that Elia was right. She was hurting. She felt alone among the reeds in a sense. Blowing with everything else going on, but she stood alone. She personally wanted deep down in her soul for things to be better. But that was a fantasy. A fairy tale. A weakness. Please, Blake, the White Fang spy pleaded to her lover. Elia had been trying for weeks now to get Blake to essentially run away with her. Where they would go, she had no idea, but it had to be better than suffering under Gira's rule. Elia killed because she had to. Not because she was bored and craved bloodshed. Why are you doing this to me? Blake says. Why can't you just let me serve honorably with my father? Because your father is going to get you killed. Elia says as she nudges Blake's fingers together around her breasts. This was all she could think of to keep Blake grounded here with her and not on some distant battlefield surrounded by waterfalls that didn't exist. And it'll be an honorable death, Blake says, sitting up in Elia's arms. Then I won't stop until you're mine, Elia says softly as their eyes meet. And mine alone. You do that, Blake says softly. A bitter kiss is shared between them. One ready to love, the other scared to let go of her sword, the only thing she had left of her mother. 3000, 4, 5, 6. What the hell? Where is the collection from this morning from the North Sector? Marrow bellows at his underlings. They all frantically go over spreadsheets on their scrolls to appease their leader in the moment. Sir, our convoy back to the headquarters was attacked by a mob of rebels. Again, a muscular tall bird, Faunus says. He looks up from his scroll only to find Marrow growling softly in his face. His soft green eyes being shadowed by a gentle red indicating a level of fury building inside his face. How the fuck did you let this happen? This was your convoy to manage. Marrow screams at him. The other Fang members oozed with panic even behind their plain white masks, not yet blooded with a handprint of Gira. These were newer bodies to the fold. Some had been here a few months. Some mere days after being enslaved to some degree for lien that was owed. Not unlike how the Shnees got their soldiers. It was her again. Neon. I saw her run off with a crate of Mistral silver, the bird Faunus perks up saying with his hooked nose and colorful stripes on his cheeks shimmering from the nervous amount of sweat he'd built up. Marrow sighs and throws his hands up in the air and kicks a poor Fang member in the shin and then kicks them again. And again. And again, until they were in a fetal position whimpering. Go and find our loot now or I'll clip your wings, Marrow said, drawing his hand cannon revolver. The henchman holds up his hands in fear and shuffles away with his team as they climb back into a small armored vehicle and rolled away. A medical team of Faunus rushed to the injured Fang member who was coughing up blood on the floor. Marrow walks off from the cargo floor of the White Fang headquarters, leaving a pool of blood behind him. Moments later, Marrow is actively tallying the overall collection from the day. Several large tables filled with Mistral silver gleam in front of him as he officially entered the hall into the coffers of the Fang. He was the money man. The silver canine, as he was called these days for those that knew him well. There was no silver he couldn't find. Even if someone shit it out and it had made it downstream, he'd collect, with interest. The doors hiss open behind him as he counted dutifully. His eyes never leave the tables as he did so. Not now, Fiona, he says absently. You ruptured this girl's lung, you ass. The young Faunus says, breaking Marrow from his work. He straightens up and turns to her with a cold-looking face. You want me to add that to my expense report? He says, looking at her. You're costing us lean when you break your toys, Amin. You need to control your fucking temper. All that matters is that every sliver is accounted for or Gira will have my head. Then no one would be in your bed bothering to smash your head into the headboard, now, would they? Marrow says, snickering at his own bravado. Oh, fuck you, Marrow. You think I enjoy this dance we do? You break someone, I fix them, then you give me make-up sex. I'm tired of it, Fiona says, crossing her arms. Fiona Time, 23 years old. The resident medical captain of the White Fang. They had several, but she was the only on duty for Fang-to-Fang related injuries. She had her fill when Blake had gone through 10 last month during training. She was getting tired of seeing the same faces with bloodied faces or legs. Funny thing is, you're just as sick as everyone else. You could have left a long time ago. Disappeared with leader Callie, but you didn't. You stayed to be a good little dog like the rest of us. Don't ride that high horse of yours now, Marrow says, resuming his counting. I can ride whatever the hell I want, you ass, Fiona says, walking up to him with a small sway of her hips. Marrow smiles softly as she sits on a table in front of him, poking her shoulder out to him. She was in a dark gray uniform with a small bit of cleavage showing. She wasn't big, but she could use what she had just fine. The soft curls in her hair were a nice touch as well for a sheep Faunus. Marrow counts the line of silver ingots as they ended to her right side and she drags his chin up to her eyes. Her eyes give a small flutter as their eyes meet. You're interfering with Talon business, Marrow says as he leans forward between her legs. She giggles and lets a button that folds over her chest pop, loose, suddenly exposing the then armor layer on the backside of it. I guess you're going to have to take me in Talon 4, she coos in his ears. A gentle wag from his tail was always a good sign he was hard for her. But today was a bit different for some reason. As lovely as that sounds, I can't bend you over this table. Not today, Mero says, buttoning her uniform together with practiced hands. She scoffs and wipes the dried blood on the table as she hops off. You're being a coward, Mero. Not hot, Fiona says. I could have you caged, you know. Mero says, scowling at her. And what else is new? You've been losing silver these past few months. Our medical supplies have been running lower and lower due to lack of funding, and that's all on you, mister. She says, poking him in the chest firmly. She loved her a good bloody day, but not when she couldn't actually do her job. Stitching up flesh was the one thing she could do well. Everything else was just survival instinct at this point. You think I don't know that? I got Blake on my ass all the time now. She says, I'm becoming the Fang's most vulnerable weakness. Hell, Master, Tyrion says I'm a lost child looking for his toys when he sees me panicking over the low tallies. Isn't Tyrion a Talon too? Fiona asks as her brow lifts one side. He is, but he's the closest to Commander Gira. He helped Gira lead the first rebellion years ago. Almost best friends, if you want to call it that. Mero says, sipping a flask he produces from his coat pocket. It was a small thing with a bullet round lodged into it. A small token given to him from his father Calcum Amin. Having performance issues, are we? Fiona teases as she bumps his hips walking by. You're pushing it, Wooly, Mero spits back at her. I'm a BAAD girl, Fiona says, leaving him to his counting. Mero stands in the middle of the room as the silver glints in his eyes. He'd been Talon 4 for a while now. More than 2 years. He wanted to do something more. Greater than this. He was the best marksman they had in the barracks. He could bed any Faunus woman he wanted, except for Blake, obviously. Elia would skin him alive and make him watch it on video. He'd gotten with Fiona due to his own time spent in the hospital wing after an op gone wrong. Fucking schnees in their white suits. He took a bad round in the thigh. Bled like a pig on a warm day. Fiona patched him up within hours, but Blake had forced him to the bench. He never did like Blake's softness. He was a warrior like her, and yet she'd belittle him. It was infuriating. There were 2 things, no 3 things Mero hated. A schnee, Blake's indifference, and missing funds for the cause. He basks in the silence for a while longer, but submitting his official statement in his scroll. If he couldn't keep the money secure, then what would Commander Gira say? It mattered little ultimately. He'd be dead. Adam would mourn him honorably. Elia would probably spit on his grave as she lay the rose down. Blake would salute him. Tyrion would shake his head in disappointment. The doors hiss again and Mero turns. Fiona, I said, Mero begins, but Blake stood at the door with her left hand resting on her sword. Expecting your fuck buddy, she says, stepping inside. Captain, Mero says with as much respect as he could at the moment. I hear you're short again. Blake says, eyeing the rolls of silver. I'm having a team recover what was stolen from that bitch Neon. It will be settled. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. What's the problem? Blake asks plainly. You give me inexperienced idiots and expect things to run smoothly. Mero says, shrugging at her. So, you admit failure then? Blake says. Is that on the record? The canine Faunus says, standing to face Blake squarely now. They glare at each other in a cruel game of chess. Mero was just trying to do the one thing he was good at, numbers. Blake was good at all things except personal relationships. Don't make me have to replace you. Blake says, glaring at him. Is that all? Mero says calmly, but his tail was shaking just out her sight. He knew he was on thin ice. No. We're due in my father's chambers. I'm fetching you all. Now. Blake says, heading back out the door. Mero follows behind her in formation to her right, hanging back a bit. Elia bounds in place behind on his left with a smile. Sup, dog? Elia says, laughing. I hate you, Mero says as they walked along to form the talons. A taller man with a decorative blindfold pads along gently down a plain corridor with a wooden sword resting against his shoulder. He was in good spirits today. He had 30 new members to train today in bladed combat. Today was a simple drill. Stealth attacks. You'd think it would be easy against a blind Faunus, but it was anything but that. Adam was a master of his craft and no one could take the bells from his right hip. A small barely audible creak is behind him and he quickly steps to the side and hears a small yip as a trainee falls over herself attempting a lunging strike with her wooden sword. She missed. Too loud and slow, I'm afraid, Adam says with a small smile. Then another dodge. Then two more that came at him at the same time. Now things were getting fun. A small group ambush him from above, but he jumps back and rams the lot of them into a pile of confused pain. But then a promising intent is felt and he has to bring his own training sword out to meet another with a hard clack right behind him. A single crossing block from his backside. You've done well so far, Tucson. Adam praises as he turns to meet Tucson's scrunched face. Adam held his ground with perfect technique, letting Tucson bear all the weight on his sword. I will pass the test today, Tucson says with a smile and hope failing in his voice as Adam manages to push back easily. I don't doubt that. But not at the present, Adam says, slipping the wooden blades past each other and slamming Tucson's hand into the hilt of the wooden Adam held, and then a swift hard left knee to Tucson's exposed core. Tucson dropped to his knees, barely breathing. Adam hovers over him and shakes his head. Get up, Adam scolds as Tucson lifts himself up. Fail. Try again tomorrow, Adam says, turning to the rest of the students who'd all failed as well. If one failed, they all did. A mixture of groans and hissing erupts from the class as they walked away. Some already battered from earlier. Some mentally fatigued from Adam's grueling lessons. Adam takes a breath and makes his way to the armory for a casual visit to an old friend. He wasn't happy about today. He wanted to get the newer members ready, but he felt he was coming up short in his own way. As Adam walks inside, a handful of busy workers flip open their welding visors and some even stop hammering steel long enough to greet the Talon with respect with a gentle bow. Talon 2, always a pleasure. A tall brown, spiky-haired young Faunus man says with a smile. Afternoon, Yuma. How goes the metal work today? Adam says, walking along among the metal. This was one of the benefits of losing his sight as he'd grown to learn. The metal ringing in his ears was always sharp, but now he could hear the blades sing as they were being forged. Quality and beautiful pieces of art each blade was. Each made for the owner. Never losing its edge even against bone. We're humming along, sir. Very good indeed. I do have some good news actually, Yuma says, walking along with Adam. Yuma was the workshop's main metallurgist. If he could melt it, he could turn it into a blade. Some of Yuma's finest work hung off some of the more prominent members of the Fang. Blake's blade that was gifted from her mother, made by a young Yuma. Gira's triple-bladed claw gauntlets, and now his magnum opus, a blade he'd been working on for a year for Adam. A thank you more than anything for allowing him to serve as well as he had. Oh, I do hope it's shiny at least. Adam chuckles. Not that you'd know, sir, Yuma says, joining the banter. Yuma opens up a security door with a palm reader and the door clanks up with heavy recesses in the door folding up as the door rises. This was the main smelting room. It was a brisk temperature inside, capable of making the uninitiated pass out, but this was heaven for Adam and Yuma, kindred spirits one may say. It's coming out of the fire now, Yuma says, stopping just above the furnace. I can feel it, Adam says. Two Faunus of similar ear tufts lift the red-hot blade from its fiery nest as the blade hummed from its dark chain. The twins then douse the blade with a dark red salt that cools and cures the blade. The blade hisses and reacts the technique and crackles into a dark red color. Then the blade is moved gently into a cooling vat and a sharp hiss fills the room. Adam smiles as if he was hearing angels sing. How about it, Yuma? How did it turn out? The fox Faunus says as his brother waited anxiously, leaning in his shoulder. Corsac, Fennec, well done, Yuma says, clapping his hands as he grabs a pair of metal tongs and draws the blade from its watery vat. And there it was, a blood-red blade fit for any killer. A genuine work of art. Yuma inspects the blade first before Adam carefully touches the blade with an experienced touch. The blade's edge was unreal. Yuma had done an amazing job engineering this. Deadly. Precise. All trademarks of your talents, Yuma. Thank you. Adam says, turning to him. Too kind. She's not ready, but with a bit more sharpening and adding the custom hilt I built for you, it'll be ready next week. Yuma says, resting the blade in its original molding. I want to serve the Fang well and stand by my captain's side. You have done well to help in that goal, Yuma, Corsac, and Fennec. What are you going to name the blade? All metal of such refinement must have a name, Fennec says, giving a fist bump to his twin brother. Ah yes, a simple would do, I suppose, Adam says, rubbing his chin. After a moment of walking around in a tight circle and kicking his feet a bit, he settles on something. Wilt, Adam says. Just, wilt, sir. Yuma says. Of course. Etch it into the blade properly for me. Adam says, walking away with a smile. As Adam made it back to the main floor of the armory, 3 Talons waited for him in formation. He could smell Blake and Helia first. They smelled alike, indicating they had a session not too long ago. Marrow smelled of gunpowder and metal. A pleasant smell to him. I take it we're needed. Adam says, falling in line behind Blake. To my father's chambers we go, Blake says, smiling. Where you go, I go. Adam says softly as they headed deeper into the compound. In a fire-bathed room, the commander of the White Fang stood in front of his fire pit staring into the flames, mulling over his control of the Mistral district. He'd been debating with his right-hand man Tyrion for quite some time now. Strategizing. Plotting for a rematch against the Shnees. They were the main threat to his domain and he'd been slowly amassing power to do so. A mysterious death here. A misplaced secret there. Nothing he'd never done before. But now he was trying to move in the right direction now that he'd put his claws around the necks of his cohorts. It was time now for the White Fang to march upon Shnee territory and render it asunder with his bare hands. It is a most daring plan, my lord, but you do have to spend a lot of your manpower to achieve it. Tyrion says as he poured himself a drink of brown fluid. He sets another next to Gira upon his throne's armrest using his agile tail. Gira grumbles a deep grumble in his chest as if a predator weighing his options in deep thought. We've run the numbers, have we not? Gira says, reaching for his glass. As you know, numbers can change with a mere whisper, thus plans of conquest can be fickle. Tyrion giggles to himself a bit maniacally. I've been so naive for so long, old friend. This is more a moment for me to honor my late parents. Achieve a great utopia for the Faunus people. Or, are my ambitions that of a terrible father wanting his daughter to not fear him? Gira says, taking a shallow sip of the liquid fire. If I may, Gira, you are putting so much on yourself. I believe it is indeed worth offering a change of hands when the time comes. Tyrion says as he sat down to enjoy his own drink. Even the most powerful of kings must rest. You sound like Callie. Gira chuckles to himself. Callie had been lost to him due to her coma for some time now. He'd avoided seeing his fierce mistress of Blade in such a state. Some of it was fear of how he'd react. The rest was in some part his own false sense of honoring her in the event he ever got word her heart stopped. He'd been sending funds for her care directly to Director Lionheart of the hospital she was being kept at. Blake had always begged for him to go see her. Gira of course had resisted until eventually Blake stopped asking. He knew to some degree Blake hated him for abandoning Callie. His own goals and ambitions blinded him all those years ago and now he was trying to correct those wrongs, if he wasn't too late. How is the Lady Commander these days? Tyrion asks, looking up at an old and dirty portrait of the Gira, Callie and a younger Blake standing next to her father as he sat in his chair with Callie right behind him. All in full fatigues. Lionheart's latest is that she's stable still. Still no real brain activity except for spikes of activity whenever there's an incident. He smiles as his memories flicker in the flames. She's still fighting, it would seem. She was always perceptive. Tyrion smiles, humming in agreement. And now I will usher in a new age for her. When she wakes, I will have achieved a long sought after dream she's had. Peace for all Faunus. A Faunus people that can be free of this cage of a city. We deserve better. That's all I want at the end of the day. Come what may, I will obtain this. And I will rip apart those foolish to get in your way, my friend, Tyrion says, offering a toast to his commander. Gira turns finally and offers his glass up as well in a friendly gesture. They begin a small conversation before a soft but rough voice sounds from Gira's bedroom as a sharp-teethed fauness struts out with a smile on her face. Her short haircut was the only thing about her that showed any kind of harshness. She was in a dark green lingerie that did little to hide her supple chest and birthing-like hips. She greets Tyrion with a slight bow, but wanders towards Gira with a hand outstretched. "Pouring up without me. What kind of girl do you take me for?" she says, taking the open bottle for herself and drinking directly from it with deep gulps. "Talk, so glad you could keep our lord's bed warm. Had a go at his endurance, did you?" Tyrion chides as he looks at the uncommon pair. "The Wukong said it'd be a good gig for me. Never though I'd actually be in the great Gira's bed. He's fun," Talk says, sitting on a nearby table, letting her lingerie make her look more appetizing to either Gira or Tyrion. She was on assignment like any other girl or guy the Wukongs deal with. She was good at her job. "My pleasure, of course. I love getting work around the Fang HQ. You guys have some of the best drink a woman could ask for. Food isn't bad either," Talk says, licking her lips at Gira. Gira shares a glance with her and turns away from her and sets himself down in his throne. "The rest of the Talons are on their way, yes?" Gira asks to Tyrion as he took his place on his right side. "I've sent the summons. Blake and the rest should be on her way," Tyrion says. On cue, the larger doors at the far side of Gira's chambers open with a hard thump of metal and cogs turning. Blake along with her Talons follow her inside in a diamond-like formation. When they are some feet away from his chair, Blake is the first to drop to one knee and the others follow suit. Tyrion smiles and continues to sip his drink, waiting for the meeting to start. "You called for us, father," Blake says as she lifts her head up to meet Gira's eyes. The amused leader just minutes ago dies on his face as he regards Blake and the others. It was always so unsettling how quick Gira could be thoughtful in a moment and then run his claws through an enemy as if he was swatting away a fly. "What news do you have for me about our thief situation in the district?" Gira said in a low voice. "Marrow has sent another team after her," Blake says. "Another team? Have we not learned of our failures?" Gira counters. The room shakes from the passing overhead Alpha number 2 train and its cargo heading out into the city for the day. Marrow then stands to give his response to the situation. "Commander, I take full responsibility for the convoy being ambushed this morning. I should have chosen better collectors. It was my intention to bring my team in line with the older ones," Marrow says, keeping his head angled towards the floor slightly. Why not do it yourself, I mean?" Tyrion asks with a gentle chuckle. "I have other responsibilities inside these walls," Marrow says. "Is it your position that you prioritize your own duties over the money being stolen from me?" Gira asks. "My attempt at multitasking, Commander," Marrow says. "I need more than simple multitasking," Gira says. Blake stands and approaches her father with hands held in front of her in a placating gesture. "Father, I propose a plan that will address both Marrow's failures and ensure our thief is caught once and for all." "Admirable, my dear Blake. Standing up for your comrades like this," Tyrion says. "I suggest we use the Starks to capture and rid ourselves of this problem," Blake says. "Trust humans. Much else them of all people," Gira says, resting his cheek on his larger knuckles. Blake glances at Elia before giving her answer. Elia had been gathering information for the last couple of months on an opportunity to use the Starks to do their dirty work without having to give anything in return or at all. "It has come to my attention that we leverage a simple policy the Starks offer once a year during certain events. This event in question is Lady Stark's daughter Ruby. Her birthday is fast approaching. On that day, they open themselves up to the denizens of criminal filth, and those individuals can ask the Starks for a favor. Eye for an eye. It's mainly to lock those unprepared in a never-ending debt cycle with them. Quite clever if used correctly," Blake says as she resumed her kneeled stance. Gira was thinking long and hard about it. He'd never considered them. Not like this. Gira always preferred the long game when it came to his machinations. Not that it always served him well, but this was an interesting opportunity. He could embed Elia later when he had the chance. All he needed to do was convince Summer to him speak with her. Otherwise, he'd have to kill a lot of her men to do so, and that wasn't ideal. Not when he was starting to put his ambitions into action. I'll see to this myself when the time comes. If we can leverage the other Syndicate members in such a way and then keep our blades hidden, then so be it, Gira says, leaning back on his throne. I suppose now I'll need to do some shopping to find proper attire. Thank you, Father, Blake says, smiling as she dipped her head down deeper to hide it. Elia, Gira says as his brow flinched. Sir, Elia says. You have done well since becoming a talent. I must remember to use you more. Your talents are wasted otherwise, Gira says, smiling. I serve and I kill for the Fang. Elia says, catching a quick glance at Blake through her bangs. Her color had shifted into a happy soft green color now. The rest of you will be on standby when Blake and I attend this event. Just in case the Starks find it advantageous to kill us there. Are we agreed? Gira asks the rest of them. Sir, they said in an even tone. A party to eventually sink your teeth into the necks of those inadequate humans. Oh, how I wish I could partake and sit ringside. The entertainment that would be. Tyrion says, spinning in front of Gira with his arms held up at his sides. Knives, guns, deception, oh my. To see the princess of the Fang draped in an elegant visage just to undermine the Starks. Glorious. Tyrion continued. Gira sighs as he rubs his brow.
So there you have it. That is Chapter 7 of RWBY Syndicate. And, oh boy. Things just got very interested. So, just be on the lookout for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Links to my other channels, my social medias will be down below the description box. You guys know the drill. Links to the fan fiction will be down below the description box because I do not own the story. I do not own the art. So all credits goes to them. Links to my CashApp, PayPal, Ko-fi will be down below the description box and my bio if you guys want to donate to support the channel. Again, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. RWBY is love, RWBY is life. Keep moving forward, and I'll see you guys later.